Right, so welcome to the show, and today we'll be reviewing Doctor Who Dreamtime, number 67 in the Big Finish main range. So it was a four-part drama, quite traditional in classic Doctor Who. It was released in March 2005, so the exact same month that the reboot was first launched. Rose, I think it was. So it was written by Simon A. Forward. He's only written two of the main range audios. The previous one was number 37, I think, and I think there's an alien race that features in both of them called the let's find it, Galliari, which are sort of lizard warrior sort of traders, really, I think, from what I can gather. And they're obviously in that other audio called the Sandman, which I probably will do next after this. Obviously, I probably should have done that first, but I saw this one and thought it'd be a good place to start. I've never really, obviously, I haven't listened to it before, so I wanted to do one that I hadn't previously heard. And it was produced by Gary Russell, who was the main producer for the early Big Finish. The cover art was done by Lee Binding, which I quite liked, actually. I found out as well that he'd done most of the classic Doctor Who DVD covers as well, which I really love. He'd also done the new Blu-rays, which I don't like, mainly because of the new logo from the reboot being on it, which I think has probably put a lot of people off buying it, me included. I mean, like for myself, like I collect like the VHS tapes of the classic series. That's my main kind of thing, really. Obviously, I have the DVDs as well, and sort of getting into Big Finish. So for me to get the Blu-ray as well, it would have had to have looked like pretty amazing. And it's more like the reboot sort of putting its scent onto the classic series, which I don't really approve of, to be honest. But anyway, enough of that. Steve Foxon does the music for this, which I thought was a major part of why I liked it, actually. Especially, going into part one, straight after the music kind of, the end of the theme bleeds into the sort of Australian Aborigine kind of music, what's that? What's the I can't think of the instrument right now. Did you do? I think so. Anyway, but yeah, there's a lot of that going on, which I really liked, and again, go back to that artwork of it. Sort of has that Aborigine kind of artwork, which is a theme that runs through the whole of the piece, really. I thought that was a really strong part, and for my score at the end, it kind of gives it a little bit more than what I would have given the story. So it starts off set far in the future on a city on an asteroid, I believe. There's kind of like, you can hear like a sort of riot going on, or I think it's probably the Dreamtime capturing people and putting them into the Dreamtime and sort of turning them to stone. But yeah, anyway, the Doctor, Ace and Hex arrive. Now, I have heard a few stories with Hex before, and I really like the character. I think he's a good addition to the Seventh Doctor and Ace. I thought the performance of just like his accent's really cool in it, like the Liverpudlian sort of Scouse is really good, and I don't know if that's actually his own or voice he puts on, but that's really great. Also, I thought Sylvester McCoy, he sounds really just like he'd come out of the classic series pretty much, which sort of brings me, I think, going back to like when this was made, he could have easily been in one of the new series episodes, it would have, I think it would have linked it a lot better to the classic series, which I guess in a way, because of the, in my opinion, that the mess it ended up in, maybe it's good they didn't do that, because then you can sort of separate it off. But I think Russell T Davies could have, and probably should have. It's probably one of the mistakes he made, instead of focusing too much on companions. And I say that he brought back Sarah Jane and stuff, but I think that by focusing on her, as good as she is, it's not, it's sort of in a way devalues all the other companions, which probably, everyone has their favourite. And why her? I don't, it's just because he personally likes her, rather than it being good for the series, and I definitely have preferred to have a Doctor back rather than Sarah Jane or previous companions from the reboot constantly appearing. So I think that's one of the things that could have made it better. But each to their own, isn't it? Yeah, I believe though this is Hex's second adventure with the Doctor. I think the first one where they meet him, what's the name of it? I have it, so it probably will appear on this series at some point. I think it's called The Harvest. But it was interesting to hear that Ace is called McShane in this. I guess Dorothy McShane was her sort of real name, I guess, because obviously in the classic series it's kind of revealed that she's called Dorothy. I guess it was a good choice, to include that in there, because it sort of is a nice little thing, nice little piece of writing to give her a little bit of character development. Anyway, back to the story. So they're exploring around, and I thought part one was probably my favourite part, because it set up quite a good mystery and had good atmosphere to it. So it seems like the Doctor gets turned into stone and put into the Dreamtime. Now, I did find it a little bit confusing from that times as to who actually put these people into the Dreamtime. Maybe it was parts of the city itself which generated. I don't know, because it seems like it was. Anyway, we'll get there. We'll get there. So yeah, so Ace and Hex meet the. I keep going back to the notes. Galliari, who are the sort of reptile traders, and they sort of explore around and try and find out, what's going on. I think that the Galliari are there just to sort of for trade purposes, really. Once the Doctor actually gets turned to stone and put into the Dreamtime, now this is a bit confusing. My interpretation of it is that he goes back to somewhere on Earth, the Arulu, which I guess is in Australia, but at the end of when Earth is dying, and this sort of mythical figure is going to lift the city, or into the future onto this asteroid, which is where they landed. I was a bit confused about that, but we try and make the best of what we have. So he meets this figure, who is the one that the Doctor describes him as not a god, but as close as you can get to one. He sort of guides the Doctor. Well, the Doctor persuades him to extend his reach to include the, I guess like the local sheriffs or something, people who are trying to control and get his followers onto ships to leave the planet, before it gets destroyed. And by doing this, it's a bit confusing. I mean, I guess like it's about bring Western values to to the future of this place where they land, and that was apparently part of their downfall. People started being more modern, having a sort of, leaving behind the traditional practices and stuff, to do with their like sound waves. I can't remember what they sort of use them as weapons, but I don't know if that's part of it. But because they stopped doing that, the sort of city, the guy, the sort of spiritual leader of the city, who is kind of alive, he starts the process of terraforming the city again, because he believes that it's at an end and it needs to be, have a complete overhaul, I guess. That's sort of why these things are happening and why people are going into the Dreamtime. Yeah. Anyway, so he does this, and it's kind of a bit of talk about cause and effect, and in a way the Doctor causes this sort of modern attitudes that bring about its almost downfall. I feel like there was a bit of an attempt at an allegory here, but I don't know, it's a bit unclear really as to what he was trying to do there. So that he ends up getting back, and there is a few, the Galeari, Ace, and Hex are kind of in this underground river, searching for a way to sort of destroy this sort of, I guess, the main sort of terraforming program. Well, they believe there is one, but by doing that, they would destroy that sort of mythical guy who seemed like a god. I suppose there was mention of him. If they do that, then this sort of force field that separates them from space would collapse and the whole thing would be destroyed. So the Doctor has to try and stop them doing that. There is a moment where, I guess it's the city itself generating it, but takes the form of like an evil version of the Doctor, which is kind of cool. Wasn't expecting that, but I'd have liked more information. Like, I don't know, I think it would have been good if it was clear what the city was, or what this creature was. I mean, it's kind of, I don't know. I've kind of rushed through the story there, but it's the basic premise of it. Not too much else happens there. I thought there's a few moments where Hex, there's a bit of character development for Hex in it, where he's with one of the survivors he meets. He's sort of talking about they have to sort of shoot a dog that the city's produced, which was kind of, I think he's sort of going to be like a quite, sort of representation of morality. I think he's going to be sort of representing that in stories quite a lot. He seems to have quite a strong, moral duty to do the right thing, really, and not to sort of kill. And I suppose that, we'll see where that ends up, I did like the spiritual aspect of this, which again went with, well with the music, and the sort of Aborigine sort of, obviously the Dreamtime, or, the dreaming is sort of an Aborigine sort of word for their sort of spiritual beliefs, so it's cool that hadn't really been done much before. It did remind me of classic TV story, episodes of Kinder and Snake Dance, which was, I quite like those ones. I suppose it would have been too cheesy to have this with Tegan in it, because obviously she was Australian. I suppose it did. It reminded me of Fort of Doomsday, where they have the. Well, I guess they are Aborigines, but they're like sort of robots, forms of them, and they sort of have that. Is it a didgeridoo? Playing that, and obviously it's the same kind of music as in this. I guess the sort of main, if there is one, is that society needs a bit sort of a balance, of traditional and modernisation for it to sort of be healthy. But again, that was kind of unclear maybe it's a little bit messy about, I don't know. So as I said, this was my first time listening to this story. My personal rating, if anyone cares, is going to be out of 10. It's going to be 6.8 out of 10. Mainly because the music, I think, I really enjoyed. As a musician, myself, I kind of quite drawn to the music of it, and it worked really well. I think the performances from the Doctor and Hex, particularly, obviously Ace is as good as always, but I felt just particularly those two characters were really, those two actors are very strong in it. The time scale rating overall at present is 5.4 out of 10. I think is a bit too harsh on it, to be honest. I'd at least give it a 6. I suppose the story, I quite like the spiritual aspect of it, as I said, but maybe it's a bit messy and unclear at times, which maybe... I think the Galliari are all right. I don't think they're my favourite sort of creature. But yeah, I think without the music, I probably would have given it a lower score. Would I listen to it again? Potentially. I think I'd potentially listen to it again. I wouldn't rush back to listen to it, but it was quite good, and it's actually better than I thought it was going to be. So, I thought the cover looked quite cool, and I looked at the timescale rate and I thought, oh, maybe. But yeah, I think it was better than I thought it was going to be, and I do think the score on timescales is a bit harsh on it. But yeah, I probably should have said this at the start, but so I've been a big fan of Doctor Who, mainly the classic series for years, and I've been getting into Big Finish, the main range really, for a couple of years, and I just thought that I'd like to do something constructive with it and sort of fun with what I'm interested in, and so I'm going to be reviewing, and just sort of talking about stories from the main range, and it is going to be done out of order. I did think about doing it from the very beginning, but it might be I've already heard some of those stories already, so I sort of wanted to start doing sort of ones that I find interesting in the main range that I haven't heard before, just to make it a bit more interesting for myself. And but yeah, I'll be doing The Sandman next, from 2002, which is obviously the same writer as this one. And I'll see you all soon. Thanks for listening.